We are going to get restarted. I'll speak, I'll just sort of drone on while people come back in. And before I start with this session, I want to remind everybody, and I'll say this again in a minute, a couple of housekeeping things. After this session, we are going to have a test run or a pilot, a demonstration, a test of a new organizational capacity tool that the Climate Office at AID has developed. So please, this is going to run until about 1:30 or 2. And then immediately after that, we would like you to participate in a test of this new tool, which my colleagues Catherine Stratos and Becky Nicodemus will lead us on. Also, I know you've heard this plenty, but remember we are launching a new climate information portal, or called Climate Links. Thanks for asking. And if you would like to be on our pilot group, tick the box on the registration form if you haven't already, and you will be emailed a password so you can participate. I think most people are back in. So as most of you know, each month, well, I'm John Furlow, I work at USAID. Most of the time I'm at state for a couple months more. I work on adaptation at USAID and at state. So each month, usually on the third Thursday of the month, we have a community adaptation meeting where somebody comes and joins us and talks about some of the work we're doing. They're frequently here in the Carnegie Endowment, either up here or downstairs. I think most of you are on the email list to get the invitations. If you're not, you can also indicate that on the sign-up sheet. I don't know if there's a formal checkbox, but you can just ask them to make sure you receive the emails. Those are also webcasts, so even if you live in Peru, if you're interested, you can sign up and watch. Today is not Thursday, and I realize that. But because we're running this whole week of week-long symposium, we wanted to take advantage of the presence of our Macedonian colleagues, and because their work has been focused on urban issues, we thought that we would have the official adaptation community meeting on a Wednesday on Urban Day rather than on Thursday, because I think 2 or 3 months ago, tomorrow is Climate Day, Climate Information Day, and we did climate information at the adaptation community meeting a few months ago, so now I've confused you anyway, but for simplicity's sake, we're doing the adaptation community meeting today, and I will turn it over to Glenn to unmuddy the waters for me. Thanks.
Okay, John, that was good. I didn't have to correct you on anything. I'm going to give you a little bit of background. In September of 2013, CCRD with Nora Firm from USAID were invited to go to Macedonia and do a training on the Climate Resilient Development Framework. And we were going to do this training for Milieukontakt, which I'll refer to as MKM, and their trainers. They largely use trainers from outside the organization that are university people, work in government in a couple of cases. So, you know, we just sort of figure, hey, they know a good thing when they see it coming at them. And so we just know that we're going to give them this training and everything will be just fine. So we're doing the debrief after the training. And the first thing that Igor, the director, says to us is, we have to level with you. We didn't have very high expectations for this training. And the previous training that they had had on a different topic, as they described it to us, their understanding of the issues were on level 5, and the trainer came in at level 2. So they were rather disappointed, and they had no expectations. So my heart just sort of dropped down to my toes and said, oh boy, I know what's coming next. And then he said, this is really useful, thank God. So it turned out, and this began a collaboration between CCRD and MKM. Charlotte Mack from ICF and I went back last fall and did a full week training for a group of about 25 or 30 trainers and partners from municipalities. And we've also embarked on trying to integrate some of the key elements of the Climate Resilient Development Framework into a pre-existing planning process called the Green Agenda. And so from my perspective, this has been a really interesting collaboration. It's been an opportunity to, if we really believe the framework is flexible, let's prove it. Let's see if there's elements in it that people can take and put into existing planning processes. And so with that, I want to introduce the team. Igor Slavkovsky is the executive director of Milieukontakt. And over several beers last fall, I learned that he probably was the youngest director ever to be appointed to an organization like that in Macedonia. Alec Karayev is going to give the presentation. He's the capacity building coordinator for Milieukontakt. And Vlatko Onyanovsky, is that close enough? Is the deputy chief of party and pilot project component. So enjoy the presentation. If you haven't had a chance to talk to these people, they have a lot of skills that you wouldn't believe. They do a lot of different things, and it's a very impressive organization. So with that, I'll turn it over to the team.
Thank you, Glenn. In order better to understand who we are, I will start my presentation with a joke. There was a contest between a British guy, Swiss guy, and Macedonian, who is more precise in archery. And then first started the British guy. They choose a volunteer. It was a very brave volunteer. So they put an apple on his head. Then within a distance of 50 yards, the British guy came. He concentrated. And then right in the middle of the apple, he said, "I'm from England. I'm Robin Hood." Then there was a Swiss guy. They put smaller apple at the top of the head, and then within 100 yards distance, he concentrated, and then right in the middle, he broke the apple in two pieces, and he said, "I'm from Switzerland, I'm Wilhelm Tell." And then there was a Macedonian guy. He said, "Okay, let's keep a distance of 150 yards, and I don't need an apple. I need only a strawberry." So they put a strawberry on the top of the head of this guy. Deep breath, just be careful, concentration. Right in the middle of eye. "I'm from Macedonia, I'm sorry." We are from Macedonia and we are not sorry, we are very happy to be here. Thank you, Glenn, thank you, GCC office for supporting us, for providing great support. Thank you, USAID, for helping us to implement our project and to give us opportunity to share our experience with you. I hope this works. The right? I'm sorry. Maybe it's...
Oh, it's upside down.
Yeah.
That one.
That one. Yeah. Thank you. Macedonia is a very small country in the Southeast Europe. According to surface, it is slightly bigger than Vermont, just to compare how big we are. Only 2 million people are living there. So when there was Macedonian delegation visiting China, the Chinese host asked how many people you are. And our guy said, "We are 2 million. And the question was, in which hotel are you based? So really small country. This is the climate change policy in Macedonia. According to last EU accession report, it shows that there is a lot of room to work in the field of climate change. And that's why it is a perfect time for a project as ours to be implemented. But who we are? We are Milieukontakt Macedonia, part of Milieukontakt network, which is active in more than 20 countries in Europe and Asia. So we are independent organization as a part of this network that is active for around 15 years in the country. And since 3 years ago, we established our independent organization. You have more information about who we are and what we are doing here in the materials outside. So this is our vision. We work on strengthening environmental movement in the country, which is, you see, is in correlation with this EU progress report. We are implementing different projects for UNDP, GIZ, USAID, and currently MKM implements project on municipal climate change strategies funded by USAID with a total budget of around 3 million euros. So, dollars, yes. What is the objective of our project? So the first objective is to increase the capacities to adapt to climate change. We heard a lot about aligning, integrating capacity, integrating climate change into development process of different countries. We heard also about peace building and climate changes, but also what is very important, I think we will focus in this presentation, is how to use climate change as a platform for improving local democratic processes in the country. That is especially important for countries with fragile democracies, to use climate change as a neutral topic in order to bring people from different ethnicities, different religions, and to tackle the issues that are common problem of all of us. What is green agenda? There was a green agenda is the answer of, sorry, what was the question? There was a question first day from South Africa called how to involve local communication into planning processes, in addition to scientists, researchers, and policy decision makers. For that, we have a very good example. We use this methodology, Green Agenda, that was developed by Milieukontakt based on Agenda 21. It is a participatory method which focus on values instead of problems. So that is how we started, identifying values of local community, building on this value, and then developing participatory process, and it is characterized with strong ownership by the local population. It is open source process because different organizations can contribute to this methodology. The product of Green Agenda is a strategic document that includes local action plans. So this is the product. But what is even more important is the process that builds on cooperation and public and very strong public participation. The results that we have achieved so far are on the product level. We have implemented Green Agenda in 8 municipalities in the country. Then we have elaborated greenhouse gas inventories in 10 municipalities. That is done for the first time in the country. We had such a greenhouse gases inventories on national level, but we have developed in municipalities as a base, as a part of the analysis of the current situation, and also that will help us as a tool in impact monitoring. Then we implemented 10 pilot projects and urgent actions. There was a lot of discussions today about pilot projects and what is the difference between pilot projects and urgent actions. Urgent actions, there is a more reactive approach, how to react on something that has already happened. And pilot projects are part of this Green Agenda process, part of the strategy, how to prepare ourselves to react on things when they will happen in the future. So, but what is common for both processes is they are results of consensus building, of joint discussions between local stakeholders. On impact level, the chief results are more intensive citizen engagement and increased capacities of civil society organizations, awareness rates and high resilience of all stakeholders in the regions where we work. This is also one of the answers of the question yesterday on a colleague from Guatemala when he asked how to prevent negative effects of changing of different governments. So we think, we are strongly convinced that by increasing the capacities of population, and not only in population, but also of institutions, civil society organizations, local public institutions, we contribute to sustainable development and we contribute to offsetting these negative effects of changing the governments. Of course, we will not completely offset this, but at least we will try to minimize these negative negative effects. I will just show you some examples of our urgent actions and pilot projects. This is, I heard that in Dominican Republic there are more regions than in China, but you haven't seen Macedonia yet. 85 municipalities, 89 municipalities, and this is an example of municipality on the border with Bulgaria, small, tiny municipality, and they had big fire last year, and due to the fire, forest was destroyed, and because of the erosion, the water was polluted. So we helped this community to install additional filter on the existing one for drinking water, and that way now the water has been cleared and can be used for drinking. So water, you see the figures, $11,000 from USAID, and there was financial contribution from municipality. The effect is that now the population, in addition to drinking water, the economic effects are the increased expenses for buying water and also increased expenses for transporting water from different sources. There is another example of pilot project. So this time, this is part of the Green Agenda strategy. And this is a project implemented in municipality that is close to Greek border. That is the warmest area in the country, highest temperature. But they have never had problems with water because there are enough rains during the year. And there are some reservoirs that are able to store these rains. But what happened in the last years? So still the quantity of rains is the same, but now there are bigger seasonal effects. The amplitudes between high and low temperatures are higher. And so now we have dry seasons with less rains, and we have rainy seasons. And the challenge is how to store this rain. So with this pilot project, they decided, within the local population, they decided that they need extra 2 reservoirs in order to be able to store these tanks. So the effects, you see again the numbers. And these 6,000 residents have increased capacities to adjust to the effects of climate change. There are some other examples. You see, some of the examples are examples of adaptation measures, some of them of mitigation measures. And we have discussed yesterday with our colleague, with Vlatko. He said, maybe we should take out these figures because in these presentations, people are dealing with millions of dollars. There was yesterday presentation, small grants with 33 million US dollars for 36 small grants projects. 3.3, okay, and then we decided, okay, this is not what the size of the project is not what is most important here. What is important is the process, because we use these projects, these pilot projects, just to achieve some sustainable results, and there are some critical success factors for that. One of them is clear ownership of the results. But how to achieve the ownership? There are different instruments for doing that. So these pilot projects and urgent actions are ways of achieving tangible results, low-hanging fruits that will motivate stakeholders in order to engage into further, bigger activities. Then the second success factor is trust. Trust is something that is very often missing in our communities. There was a joke of a guy who was parking his bike in front of a building in order to get to grocery store. And then there was policemen asking him, are you crazy? What are you doing? This is a governmental building and you're leaving the bike here. And the guy said, oh, thank you for information. I will lock the bike just to prevent for stealing. It shows lack of trust to governmental institutions, but there is lack of trust also between different stakeholders in the region. And with these pilot projects, by bringing people together, we contribute to increasing this trust. Cooperation is another thing that everybody is talking about, but it is like a snowman Yeti in Nepal. Everybody is talking about that, but in some places nobody has seen that happening, cooperation. So it is again related to trust. Another thing is involvement. Involvement which is related to commitment. No involvement, no commitment. And it is simple like that. No involvement, no commitment. Proactivity. Instead of passive waiting for the national government to change their problem, proactivity is about taking responsibility for their own development of these local communities. And this is one of the key ingredients for successful implementation of these strategies. Another success factor is leadership. We have heard about that a lot. Leadership is also related to responsibility, identifying champions not only among municipalities, but from civil society organizations, private sector, and from everybody interested to contribute to that process. 4% in average is percent of participation of local population in all these planning activities. So if we translate it to Washington, D.C. area, that would be around 30,000 people to be engaged in developing strategic plan. So these are just examples of different events. So where they have been involved, there are some raising awareness events, capacity building, trainings, working groups. Glenn mentioned something, how we started the process of integrating climate change into a green agenda. It started 2013. Yes, we asked for a technical support. There was a first training there because we had a lot of experience in the process, but what we had the lack of understanding the content. So we have implemented green agenda process, but there was not enough knowledge about how to integrate climate change resilience into development. So that's why for us it was perfect topic, and then we asked for follow-up for advanced training. Then we realized that there are a lot of complementarities between climate resilience framework and green agenda process, and then how we initiated this idea of developing joint methodology, new methodology. And we worked together, Glenn came again, we worked together, and we prepared methodology, and we were very proud to present that methodology. And as always happened, so this was our methodology, and as it always happened, when you finish 95% of your job, you realize that you are halfway there. Then Charlotte came, and then they said, okay, probably you have to revise the first step. And Mukul said, okay, the third step should be modified. Maybe the sixth step should be amended. Maybe, this is not so ideal. And then we were frustrated. And then we started to work together. We said, okay, let's close ourselves in a room. And then we worked together. And then we came up to a new solution with a new methodology jointly. So this is another opportunity to thank Glenn, to thank Charlotte and Mukul for your support to develop jointly our new methodology. This is how it looked like. Yeah, so this is, we said we will not leave this room without finalizing this methodology. Yes, now I will show you next slide. Maybe for the first time you have never seen this. Just in case you forgot it, just in case to remind you. So we had to align climate change resilient framework as a flexible framework to align into existing strategy. We also took in consideration LEDs, low emission development strategies, in order to develop our new methodology for implementing green agenda. I will shortly introduce you to different phases of green agenda. So there is a first preparatory phase. I will not go into details about all the steps. Then there is a scoping phase. And as you can see, the fourth step is determining trends and developing scenarios. So we develop scenarios based on the past. But it is not always, the past is a very good teacher, but also what we need is sharing experience from other countries, how to prepare for scenarios that might happen in the future. There is a legend about how Mayan civilization was destroyed. So first, they built their houses and there was fire. Then there was flood, actually. And they built their houses on trees in order to escape from the floods. But then there was a fire. Then the civilization was again destroyed. Then they built the houses built on stone, but then there was earthquake. So they were always preparing themselves for the things that already happened in the past. that is called penultimate preparedness. So in order to prevent this to happen, this penultimate preparedness, we think that it is very important, this lessons learning, sharing experience from other countries, and this is where I see USAID can contribute for us in order to be better able to cope with the future. Then there is a third phase, detailed analysis of problems and solutions. After making all this analysis, the community is setting up in the 8th step climate change vision. This is very important process. Just to show you how important it is, I will ask you to close your eyes for a minute and to point out your fingers in a direction of north. Do not cheat, please. Close your eyes. Use your fingers, not your forks. It looks aggressive with your forks. Okay, please open your eyes, but don't take away your arms. So you see, different sides. One says north is here, north is there. I have cases where somebody says north is there. But this is exactly what is happening in the municipalities. We want they to have shared vision about direction that they would like to go. This is easy to say, but it is a process, and then we facilitate this process together. Then the next stage of this new methodology is planning and synthesis. And as you see, there are also, after that, in implementation phase, there is implementation of pilot projects. Why it is so important? In addition to all these things that I have already mentioned about pilot projects, there is another factor why they are so important. Because very often we end up in some communities with a lot of strategies. One strategy prepared with support of UNDP, one with GIZ, the other with USAID, and there are many documents which have never been implemented. But the challenge is how to transform these strategies to strategies, how they to start to be implemented. Because in some cases, if a strategy is not transformed into strategy, it can become tragedy. That's why this implementation phase is very important. And then as a last step, there is monitoring and evaluation. Here, there is a value in sharing experiences, sharing best practices, but not only best practices. In all these conferences, we talk about good practices. But it is also very important to learn from our bad practices. Because it is says that good management comes from experience. But experience comes from bad management. So that's why we have to learn from this also, not only good but bad practices. What to do in the future? What are our plans? So first, we plan to test our new methodology of Green Agenda for Climate Change in 2 additional municipalities in Macedonia. And then we want to scale up our activities into other neighboring countries. I just met with a lady from Kosovo, and I want to announce that only 2 weeks ago we set up our office in Kosovo. And we want to implement this type of projects in the countries in Western Balkan. And for that, we have our strengths. It is application of new methodologies. Then we have really good knowledge and experience in implementing environmental projects, particularly in this area. We have extensive partnership network in Southeastern Europe. We can easily communicate each other, Serbian, Bulgarian, Croatian, Montenegrin, Bosnian. So these are all slightly different languages. Albania, we have also part of the team who speaks Albanian for Albania and Kosovo. And that's how we see ourselves ready for the future. And just to summarize, I would like to cite Boutros Ghali, who said, democracy is objective, but democratization is a process. As a process, it requires a lot of time. And climate change is happening much faster than we expected. And we don't have time to waste. So the main challenge is how to address both of them together in the future. And I invite you to join us because as a team, we are ready to shoot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, that was great. So I think this was certainly our top 2 or 3 liveliest presentations, so thank you very much. I think we could use that after 3 days of talks. We have some time, I don't know what time it is. We have about 25 minutes for questions. So, who has questions for Milieukontakt? Annika. Oh, we need the microphones. Okay, while the microphones are coming, you can all think of your questions. So Skylar, if that one's working, we've got a question over here.
Thank you for that presentation. That was wonderful. And I really appreciate you stressing the process part of it. I think anyone who's been through planning school knows that we always hear that urban planning it's a process. It's not about the plan. And I think that's something that we sometimes skip over. Like we think about we think about the product rather than the process itself. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about like the role of the municipal governments in the process and all the stakeholders that you have to inevitably bring together. You mentioned you get 4% of the population involved in this outreach, and I think that's impressive, and I just want to know a little bit more about how you did that and how you get everyone together. I imagine that it has to be municipal government led to some degree, and so how are they doing that?
Oh yeah, and yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thanks for the question. One of the main issues of the Green Agenda as a methodology is wide participation of the people and stakeholders in the community. So the municipal government is also a stakeholder, very important one. But what is the main strength in the Green Agenda is that everybody is equally represented into a process, into a working groups. So from one side, if people from the municipal government or the mayor himself, we had cases like that in several municipalities, if they would like to influence the process and the results of the process, and actually the entire strategy, they have to be included into the process. As members of the working group, so going step by step through all the steps of the Green Agenda, discussing with the people, and if they want to influence, they need to make them, they need to be there, they need to raise the issues, and they need to make people believe that these are the important issues. That's one thing. So we had cases, local government, even mayors included into the entire process. On the other side, we have a component which is going at the same time with the process of implementation of the Green Agenda, which is connected to capacity building. So one of the goals of the USAID Municipal Climate Change Strategies project is that local institutions, local stakeholders are better prepared to cope with the climate change. So this capacity building component actually targets all the stakeholders, including the local government, local governmental institutions, public institutions, and so on that deal with the climate change. And throughout the entire process, they get a series of trainings, consultancy, mentorship, and so on and so on. So they are also included on this side, on the capacity building side. And the third point where we include the municipal government is at the end of the process. At the end of the process, after the people actually develop the strategy, it goes on a review at the municipal council, and the municipal council need to vote the strategy as official municipal document. So quite often it goes for 2 or 3 times on the municipal council meeting because the councillors have idea, they suggest technical changes into a document and so on. They review the proposed actions, are they in line with the urban plan, with the other municipal strategy and so on. But anyway, at the very beginning, the first process starts with comparing all these current documents, and that's the basis where we start developing the strategy. So the municipal government is included on several different levels. Also, at the end of the process, we develop a mechanism for implementation of the strategy. So together with the municipal council decision to adopt the strategy, they develop a local monitoring group which actually monitors the implementation of the strategy. And usually this local monitoring group is consisted of municipal councillors, representatives of the municipal government, of the civil society, businesses as well. And they are listed by names, adopted by the municipal council, and they take care of the implementation. The goal of this body is also to influence the municipality, especially on the part of defining the municipal budget. So the main idea is that every year municipality has a totally separate budget line for implementation of the priorities of the strategy.
Basically, the strategy is included, the items in the strategy are included in the local municipal budget. So they provide funds for implementation of the priorities that are listed in the strategy.
Thanks. Other questions? Just, do you have a microphone? Oh, no, we're trying to get it on.
Joyce Coffey with the ND Global Adaptation Index. I'm wondering about what the influence of exogenous things are, like the COPs. So you gave such a rousing description of how things work inside the country. What happens after a conference of the parties when rulings come down about mitigation or maybe even, you know, some inklings of adaptation? Does that ever send a ripple through your work or through the stakeholders that you work with? Do they have any interest in that?
Excuse me, can you please repeat the question? A bit slower.
I'm interested in whether the UN's Conference of the Parties, that's the UNFCCC, whether anything that comes out of those COPs ever has any impact on the work that you describe here.
Thanks. Alec mentioned at the very beginning that we are starting with first developing an inventory of greenhouse gases for the municipalities. So that's building actually the starting point for measurement of the achievement of the mitigation actions of the strategy. What's very important here within our project, the Municipal Climate Change Strategies project, is that the project also incorporates the adaptation measures and mitigation measures. So for the development of the, Macedonia has already developed the third national communication on climate change, which is according to the recommendation from the UN meeting of parties. So according to this third national communication in Macedonia, there is a suggestion that each municipality should develop a municipal greenhouse gas inventories. There is a national greenhouse gas inventories which is prepared, but the municipalities, until we started, haven't started that yet. So this is the first case that we develop detailed greenhouse gas inventories for the municipalities. Yeah, this was just one of the examples of how. Yeah.
Thanks. Other questions? Right over here. Oh, and thank you, Joyce, for introducing yourself. Everyone, please introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Anita Van Breda with World Wildlife Fund here in Washington, D.C. So I have a two-part question again. The first part is, how do you in your work and in your development and implementation of the climate change resilience strategies feel that your approach builds resilience, broadly speaking, beyond climate change? And is that of interest to your partners and to local municipal government? Are they looking specifically for climate change resilience, or are they looking to build resilience to other shocks and stress? And then the second part of my question is, how has your process and your products worked with the disaster management community in your country? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. The first question, whether our partners are just interested to build resilience on the climate change or to other stressors. There was something which was very interesting when we started the project, some 2.5 years, when we were making the first analysis in the communities in Macedonia, the people, especially in the smaller communities, they were aware that they had flood last year, or that there is a dry period of the year, and so on and so on. But almost nobody was aware that that is the effect of the climate change. So they were just connected this weather, these issues to the weather conditions. So they were not aware of the climate change. So that's why we started first of all raising the awareness that climate change are happening. On the other side, the capacities, I have to say, in especially the smaller communities and smaller municipalities in Macedonia are quite limited. So we had really problems to find people, local people, which have enough expertise that they can give to the work of the local working group. So we have to manage with national experts, international experts in some cases, and so on. So in general, they are interested, but just in theory. Mainly, this is the first initiative in Macedonia and maybe in that entire part of Europe where somebody is really working on climate change resilience. So there are cases here and there in the municipalities where they work, I don't know, on different stressors, but they don't identify it as part of a climate change. Connected to a second question, even from the past, there has been a quite good system in Macedonia on coping with the disaster management system. But again, it's not, they haven't connected it to a climate change so far. So the system was there on the place some, I don't know, 30, 40 years ago, and it is working and it's functioning. It's a bit old, but mainly it's there. They are interested, and all this system and disaster management groups and institutions in the municipality are always part of the entire process that we implement. So they are there, they are present on all working group meetings, they are there with their inputs on the draft document of the strategy. Definitely one of the key stakeholders that we include in the process.
And maybe in the past they were not aware that the floods or forest fires were a result from climate change. They just happened, and then the disaster relief teams are just acting upon a flood. But now with the awareness raising, people are becoming more prepared, and maybe they are now going to include, especially with the local strategies that we develop, they are getting ready for future events like that.
I have a question from online.
Okay.
Excuse me. Renu Yadav, who is a volunteer at Sustainable Seattle, is joining us from Seattle. And the question is, how crucial is stakeholder mapping for the success of the pilot project?
Very. That's one thing that is, we call it the 0 step in the Green Agenda methodology. So the first thing that we do is preparing the community for the process, and we start with mapping the stakeholders, because again, one of the key values of the process is full participation of the people. It's fully bottom-up approach, so we want to include everybody in order that the document is relevant and is being implemented in the future.
So in involving the stakeholders, basically we give equal chance to everyone to participate, be that people experts in climate change or knowing nothing about. So everybody who is interested can participate in the working groups. And there is a first, as Igor said, the first step is called the first stakeholder meeting, where everyone participates, and then this is where they define the most burning issues. So it is important.
If I can complement to that, It is also very important because although it is a small country, there are big differences between municipalities. It is not a process that you can just replicate from one municipality to the other. There are a lot of specifics, and that's why it is very important to analyze the stakeholders, because there are differences based on demographic structure, because of different backgrounds, and yes, that's why it is especially important.
Okay, we have about 10 more minutes, so back to the back, and then we'll come up to Ian.
Hi, Judy Deilinger, independent consultant. It's been a very interesting presentation, and you have done a lot of great work in Macedonia, and now it's great that you're expanding in the region. One of you mentioned that you also work with the municipalities to create a budget that would accommodate the plans and the implementation. And over the course of the past couple of years, there has been a lot of discussions about the importance of funding mechanisms to support these plans that are being prepared. So my question to you is whether you work with municipalities, especially with the different sizes of municipalities, as you have just mentioned, which have different means financially, to create some financing plans for these for the implementation of the solutions that you come up with. Do you connect them with different funds that are known in the climate arena, or do you have your own technique that you have developed, perhaps? That would be really interesting to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very crucial, especially knowing the financial situation of the entire region there in the Western Balkans, where we know that the municipalities are not very rich with money, and they every year struggle with the budget. It is very important to work with them to find this financial mechanism. One thing that we learned during this process is that if something is priority, there are money. And also, even from the municipal budget, always. So when they see this USAID project, the first thing they say, okay, we don't have money, we need you to do this. And then when we say, okay, we'll do it if you give 50% of the money, they say, okay, but we actually don't need that, we need another thing. But if something is a priority, they found the money. We have established one very interesting mechanism that we are implementing with the municipality, which ensures some budget for the implementation of the strategy, and that is we ask the mayors of the municipality to commit if we are implementing some pilot or priority of the strategy, especially connected with the mitigation measures. The entire saving after the implementation needs to be reinvested next year into another priority of the strategy. So this is a mechanism that has been so far accepted by all municipalities. So every year, at least there is some small budget. Actually, it's not even small in some of the municipalities where there is really savings in the electricity. Especially, we had a pilot project where we changed the entire city lighting with energy efficient one. So it was the return of investment was about 6 months. So the saving only from this urgent action is quite enough to work to implement next year additional mitigation measures, changing the roofs of the schools or connected to a topic of mitigation. So this is one mechanism that we established. On the other side, for the priorities, they have every year budget line from their annual budget. And on the other side, we also have a team of experts that works with them on matching them with other funds. So if something is applicable, we have a way how to match them with other donors, like GIZ, like Swiss Development Cooperation, and so on.
We also help them develop project proposals for the available funding or grants that are offered by some of the international institutions. So that is also how we help them. But you see, they see the when we came up with this idea, they see the strategies as something interesting to them, because it's something new. And even in the beginning of the process, when they see what we want to do, the mayors usually commit themselves that yes, this is interesting, and if the strategy is good, then we will commit some funds from the budget for it, from the annual budget.
Okay, thanks. Ian, do you have the microphone? Okay.
Ian Fitzsimmons, Still Point Solutions. I wasn't here yesterday, but on Monday, It seemed to me like the community here is wrestling a little bit with the role of governance in CCRD work. And it's an interesting coincidence that our country looks to your part of the world really historically for some of the models of for the democratic institutions that really define us nationally in a way. And given that coincidence and your emphasis on local democratic processes, I wondered if you'd be willing to talk a little bit about how you see governance affecting the work that you've been doing, the role that it plays, and specifically democratic processes within governance.
Well, as you probably all know, we are quite a new democracy, and the democratic processes are not very advanced. So this is why we sometimes there are all different divides in our society. There are divides, religious divides, ethnic divides, and by using this methodology, we basically involve everyone on a neutral issue, because climate change affects everyone, poor or rich, Muslim or Christian or black or white, so everyone. So we hope that with this process we will bring together people from different sides of the divide and bring them together to work on a joint issue that is common, that affects all of them. So this is how we hope to improve the democratic processes in the municipalities.
And if I can just add something, beside this project, we connected to the good governance is one of the priorities that Milieukontakt is working on. Beside this project, we have several years ago, we have developed a mobile application. We have developed a new project and a system on improving municipal services in order that municipalities are much more responsive and much more increase the quality of the services that the municipalities are providing to the citizens. Because in the past it was, on one side, citizens were a bit non-proactive. They were waiting that the government, local government should do everything for them, and they can just stay there and there is somebody to think about them. But on the other side, if there is no pressure from the people, the local government will become lazy. So why to work more than we can work less? So we have developed a system, a mobile application, which is called I'm Reacting. The aim of this application was that every citizen can very simply, by his mobile phone, report any issues which are connected to the municipal services. This is also connected to a presentation we heard the previous panel today. But on the other side, it also gives the possibility that the municipality communicates directly with the citizens on a very simple way using the smartphone application. So we have developed that idea. We tested it in 3 municipalities in Macedonia. Now GIZ, the German cooperation, is supporting this project. So we are implementing a project in Macedonia, Serbia, and Montenegro. So in total about 300 municipalities, where we are doing now the assessment of how this kind of system can be implemented in the 3 countries and how it will improve the governance and the municipal services. So it's another tool totally different from this USAID project, which we are doing in order to increase the good governance of the municipality and also a democratic process, because on one hand, people are directly communicating with the government on issues that they are responsible. And the system also gives other functionalities like, I don't know, tracking the reaction time, how responsive is the government. But on the other side, it builds a database for the local government on where what are the largest issues, where geographically are the main problems, in which topic, and so on and so on. So the goal was to build something, a tool, that everybody would like to use it because we will have benefit, not because they have to use it. So that's another thing that we are working on and implementing now in the region.
Maybe just to add that regarding the governance, these are examples of governance on local level, but also we work with national authorities. So in parallel, we have to work with the national policy decision makers in order to improve the framework of institutional and legal framework of climate change, We organize national strategy meetings, we invite them. So we try to involve them in all these activities that we are conducting in the local communities.
I think I have time for one more question, if there is one more question. Anyone? Oh, Skylar. And could you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Victoria Doyen, George Mason. We spoke at lunch on piggyback on what you've just shared on the international level and the governance. Your unique geographic position and the fact that you spoke to both Asia and Europe. So can you elaborate a bit on the working with nation states on strategies? And in particular, bridging EU and Asia.
Alec mentioned Milieukontakt. We are Milieukontakt Macedonia, which is a local NGO registered in Macedonia. Until 3.5 years ago, we were a branch office of Milieukontakt International, which is actually a Dutch international NGO based in the Netherlands with 24 offices in 24 countries in Europe and Asia. Mainly, all the activities, I mean, we had a support in 24 countries, maybe mostly Eastern Asia and Eastern Europe and Central Asia. So Milieukontakt, the main funder of these activities was the Dutch government at that period. And mainly we were working on strategies on how to deal with obsolete pesticides. So it was something a bit different than climate change. And strategies on protection of natural values, natural areas, and so on. So this was mainly the method of work. What was combining the approaches in Europe and Asia was the unique approach that we have, which is full participation, which was some years ago quite new in both regions, but very well accepted at that time. So that's mainly, but our main focus is working on local strategy, not national strategies. So we use national strategies in order to put it down to the people, because we work with the people and we want people to be directly included into the decision-making process. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I hope that you will stay and participate in the test run of this capacity tool, which Catherine Stratos and Becky Nicodemus are going to lead us through. Before you get up, I wanted to remind you, this is, even though this is Wednesday, this is part of our regular series of Third Thursday community discussions. And being consistent with our inconsistency, in April we will be actually on the fourth Thursday. April 23rd, we have Richard Schularton from the World Food Program. He's going to talk about a rural resilience program that brings together risk reduction and index insurance. We're piloting it in Senegal. And then in May, on May 21st, which I think is actually the third Thursday, we have Todd Eisenstadt, who's a professor at American University, and he's going to talk about a survey on climate change that he did in Ecuador. And we'll have more information on both of those talks at the beginning of April and the beginning of May. I hope you can join us. Are those here? They're both at Carnegie. So, and if you're not on the email list, please sign up out there, and we'll get you on the email list. Thank you very much, and thank you. That was great.